few more minutes to join us, and then we'll go ahead and get started right at 10. Hey, good morning. We have a number of people that look like they're just joining us. So I'm going to give everybody just another moment, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Alrighty, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I want to be mindful of everybody's time, and so we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll just expect that a few people will continue to join us as we go. Just want to first confirm that everybody can see my screen for the PowerPoint. Okay, great. Well, thank you. So very quickly, so I'm Jessica Simmons. I serve as the Deputy CIO for Broadband and Special Projects at the Georgia Technology Authority. The Georgia Technology Authority is assisting OPB with the Capital Projects Fund grant process. In providing technical support for this process. Also on the line this morning, we have Jonna West from OPB. And so if there's any specific OPB questions, Jonna can assist with that. And then also Josh Hildebrandt from our team with GTA as well. With that, I don't think this will take nearly as long as our last workshop. Want to just make sure that more than anything, we open up the floor for questions now that everybody has been able to obviously read the notice of funding opportunity, that we have completed the service verification process, and now that the application window is open and the questions are visible, to make sure that if there's any questions about the application or the process, that we're able to answer those. So with that, just briefly again about the program, the state is looking to award approximately $240 million from this grant program. Initially, based on the metrics of 2,500 unserved locations or more than 20% unserved based on the state's mapping data, 44 preliminary counties or eligible project areas were identified based on those metrics. Based on the service verification process that we discussed in the last webinar, we did receive service verifications in the time window that was set forth in the application timeline. And then based on adjudicating those last week and seeing the levels of either available service or active construction, still using that 2,500 unserved location threshold, or 20% unserved. The state is going to be moving forward with 32 final project areas, and those are listed, and a map of those locations are available on OPB's website. In addition to that, we have had a lot of applicants do data requests where they essentially email me, ask for a sublicense agreement and a data request form. And at that point, we can have Carl Vinson send you, once those documents are executed, the actual address points for the grant application. I know a lot of people have already done that, but if there is any question about how to get the data set for the individual locations that the state is expecting essentially applications to serve, please reach out to me. I do also want to clarify that it is in the NOFO, but I want to make sure it's especially clear of, if the state puts out 1,500 locations in that data set, we expect to see an application to serve every one of those 1,500 locations. This is not a data set that providers can pick and choose from and say, I'm only submitting an application to serve 1,000 of these 1,500. We are expecting to see applications, if it is for that county and we list out 1,500 locations, we're expecting to see that every application for that particular county is to serve 1,500 locations. The only caveat of that being is, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, is if you are partnering with another service provider. Let's say you take 1,000 locations and they agree to serve 500 locations. Again, what the state's going to be looking for is, through your partnership, 1,500 locations are being applied for together. There is not the ability, based on how we have set up this grant program, to apply for a subset. Again, whatever the number is in the state data set for that county, that is what we are looking to see. Again, if a provider submits an application with 1,000 locations for a county where the state's put forward 1,500, and they don't have a partner to make up that difference to get to the full data set, that will be deemed an incomplete application. And so just wanted to also follow up. We've obviously discussed this previously, but eligible applicants, really the goal of this is for internet service providers to apply, or network owners. So if that's an electric co-op or a municipal utility, they are eligible to apply. The reason why we really need it to be the network owner that's the one that's applying is based on the conversations and guidance that we have received from U.S. Treasury. It's much simpler for both the awardees and the state to ultimately receive applications from the entity that's going to end up owning the asset in the end. Also, as a follow-up, we have received a number of questions related to the section of the Notice of Funding Opportunity that describes the fact that the goal of the Capital Projects Fund is to fund new projects, not projects that would happen otherwise without this funding. And so we did clarify in a set of FAQs that are also available on OPB's website. 3 points. One is related to partnerships, and I'll discuss that in a minute. One is very simple, but we've gotten this question a lot of, if a county is not listed in the final list of eligible project areas, can you still apply for it? No, you can only apply for the 32 counties that are in the eligible project areas. And then finally, again, about talking about new projects, we clarified that essentially if planning and make-ready engineering have been done, that is okay. But if anything is extended beyond that, where there's any type of field construction for any type of project, then at that point that is crossed the line, that it is not eligible, that it is moved too far into the construction phase to be eligible for applying for this grant. But so we have received that question a good bit, so we want to clarify that. Again, this is the timeline that was in the Notice of Funding Opportunity, but just want to remind everyone of, obviously we're slowly progressing through a lot of these steps. Here we are on September 8th for our virtual applicant workshop. Just want to remind everybody that our deadline to receive applications is October 7th by 5 p.m. And so we need to make sure that all applications are in by that point to be considered. And at that point, it has to be a complete application. And then again, we are looking to make final recommendations to the governor this fall. And then ultimately the award date is going to be dependent upon when the state receives approval from Treasury for our capital projects, program plan, and grant plan. Again, the scoring criteria that we discussed previously, that's also in the notice of funding opportunity, project design and implementation. That is also going to be the component that your timeline, you upload it in a separate section, but that's where your timeline will be scored with your, in that particular category of design and implementation. If you don't upload a timeline, your project will be considered incomplete. This is also the component of the project where, again, is outlined in the notice of funding opportunity that based on Treasury preference and how the state set up the program in accordance with that, there will be a preference here in scoring for fiber projects. Again, capability and competency, performance measures. Again, those are pretty straightforward. Obviously, your budget, you'll have a number of questions you'll need to answer about that, where you're breaking out, obviously, the total amount of grant funds that you're requesting, any matching funds that you would be putting into the project. And again, that should be pretty straightforward. The next component is very important, community engagement. That's something that's very important to Treasury and also to the state, of really showing how you engage the community while developing this application, and having conversations with them around, obviously, their needs of the community, but also related to affordability, which obviously leads into our final option or final scoring criteria of the affordable offering, where that will be scored based on Treasury guidance and conversations that we've had with Treasury. Treasury really expects to see an affordable offering at least at the minimum of 100 by 20. And at that point, that also will be a scored component. I mentioned it earlier, but we did also receive a number of questions about partnership applications, both on the previous workshop and then also offline. And so I wanted to kind of describe this process a little bit. It's detailed in our FAQ, but I will say we don't want to create unnecessary confusion here related to partnerships. Frankly, I don't think we expect to see a lot of partnerships, but more than anything, we wanted to make this an option just because we did see that providers in some circumstances did partner for state fiscal recovery funds. And so more so than anything, we just wanted to make this an option if somebody was looking to pick up a partner or did not want to expand out of a traditional territory. However, again, this is not required. It's only an option to make it clear that we saw this previously in our grant program and that it would at least be another option available for this one. The way that we have structured this in the application in SurveyMonkey Apply is that, let's say provider A and provider B are applying. I'm going to handle 1,000 locations and my partner is going to handle 500. We're going to get to that total 1,500 requirement to make sure that we hit all of the locations that the state is proposing for that county. And so then what you would do is when you sign up in SurveyMonkey Apply, it will immediately create an application ID number for you. And so what you will do here in this section that I'm showing is you will obviously correspond with your partner, get their application ID number, and you will list it here in the application. Beyond that, when it comes to the application, everything related to your application is going to solely be your application. You'll put in all of your company's information. You will upload your own budget. And again, you will sign all the attestations. Everything about that application is solely yours. Your partner would not see anything within that. They wouldn't have access to that. All you will be doing so that the state ultimately can get the information to the review committee to score the applications together is by listing your partner's application ID number. We also clarified within the FAQs as well that that the applications will be scored together. But beyond for scoring and ultimately final award recommendations, at that point, the applications will be treated separately, with the only caveat of if one partner is only willing to sign terms and conditions and the other is not, then at that point, that entire project area is not being covered. But assuming that both entities sign terms and conditions, and at that point, everything is going to be completely separate as if those companies solely applied on their own. Each company will sign their own terms and conditions with the state, and they will only be liable for the locations within their application based on their terms and conditions to the state. So an applicant A, based on this setup, will not be responsible via their terms and conditions or anything based on what applicant B was proposing. So certainly happy to answer any questions on that, but we have clarified all of that in writing in the FAQs to hopefully make sure that everybody understands, obviously, the application process and how that will work for a partnership, but then also trying to address some of the questions we got in the last workshop related to the liability in the partnerships, that at that point, the state really sees that that's really two separate agreements with two providers, and that those terms and conditions will separately apply to the partners. As always, we've tried to be very clear both on OPB's website and also in our last workshop that uniform federal guidance does apply, and there also are parts within the application that applicants are attesting that they understand and have read the requirements for 2 CFR and everything that they will have to abide by if they are ultimately awarded their application. So with that, we wanted to generally just go over the information of, again, an overview and to highlight some of the questions that we had been receiving throughout this process. And so with that, I'll be happy to open it up for questions. The number one thing I definitely want to emphasize, and I know I kind of harped on it a good bit before, but we've gotten a lot of questions about it, is the state is expecting to see applications that cover every single one of the locations that the state has put forward for an eligible project area. If something only serves a subset and you don't have a partner picking up the other side of that, that is going to be deemed ineligible, and that application will not move forward for scoring. Beyond that, would like to go ahead and open it up for questions. And if you'll just raise your hand in the chat or in the Teams feature, I think that might be the easiest way to go and do this, but would like to go ahead and open up the floor now for any questions that you may have for the group. Catherine?
Thanks, Jessica. This may be more of an OPB question, but so we have to do separate applications for each eligible project area. Is there a way in SurveyMonkey Apply to be like saving all of those kind of parallel applications if we're applying in multiple places? Does that make sense? Like save drafts of each application?
I know you can save drafts. If you're asking, like, is there a way to copy over information so that you don't have to put like all of your company information in multiple times?
Kind of.
I don't know the answer to that. Jonna, I'm not sure if you do as well. If not, we can certainly follow up online or offline about that. But I am not aware if there is that functionality or if you would have to input that each time.
Yeah, Jessica, this is Jonna. I'm not sure if that exists or not, Catherine, but we will check on that for you.
Okay, cool. But we can like have multiple application drafts going at a time within SurveyMonkey. Okay.
Yes, you can.
Perfect. Thank you.
And again, we also, based on the way that we have structured the program, we want to see individual applications for each project area. And so if a company is planning to apply for 5 different project areas, we would ultimately expect to see 5 applications. And so it's much cleaner from a scoring perspective to score that individual application than trying to parse out the pieces of the 5 applications. We learned that during State Fiscal Recovery Fund it's much cleaner to have 1 application per area. So again, for 5 counties, we'd expect to see 5 applications. See, it's showing as VC.
Hi, this is Vicki. I was wanting to get some information. I did not see an area for network diagrams or route maps. Is that something that you're looking for? And if so, in the SurveyMonkey application, where would those be uploaded?
So at that point, what we are looking for is all of the information that we are requesting based on the individual locations. If you would like to upload that, let me get back with you offline, and I can also put that in an updated FAQ of where you could upload that. But at that point, based on the work that the state has already previously done, we generally, how the locations were picked, we are generally aware of that route or what we'd expect to see in a route, but we certainly can either identify a place that you could upload that or add a link if that's something that applicants would like to include. So we definitely can facilitate that.
Okay, I had two other questions. I sent.
Sure.
One was on the SurveyMonkey. I do not see a listed word limit or character limit. Is there one there that we should be aware of before we start working on the write-ups?
There is not one. We did not include one. If anybody encounters any issues with the system, please let us know. We have a lot of flexibility on the back end to change a lot of that information, but there is not a set word or character limit that the state has set. And so if there are any technical difficulties with that, just let us know. And ultimately, if we do run into any character limits, we can add additional features so that you can upload documents. So, but there is not intended to be any sort of character limit, except for areas where we've restricted certain boxes so that you can't add additional numbers in related to, a zip code or an email address or a phone number or something like that. But beyond that, there shouldn't be any restrictions on the text boxes.
Okay, and then just the final question. You have a question in there about the number of homes passed for the proposed service area. Are you looking to tick and tie your numbers for the project area, or are you also wanting to see any additional homes passed that are in that route? So as you're trying to get to all those project areas and you're passing other homes, do you want those listed as well, or just the homes passed for the project area?
So that's a great question. So that question is in there to confirm the situation that I mentioned before of, we want to make sure that everybody understands and that it's clear of, if there's 1,500 locations within a project area, the state is expecting to see an application for 1,500 locations. And so at that point, we are expecting for that section of the application for applicants to essentially confirm back that if there's 1,500 locations in the state data set, that you are confirming, yes, my application serves 1,500 locations. If there are any additional passings along the way, that is not the intention for that particular box. That is just, you can include that in a narrative if you would like to include that information, but the intention of that box is to, again, as a, double check for the state, but also more so a double check for the applicants to make sure that again, the goal of making sure that we have eligible applications that are serving the number that we expect to see for that project area.
Okay, thank you.
And really quick, piggybacking off of that, it's also important to know that while you would want to, if you're going to be passing additional locations, again, to maybe put that in the narrative to just explain the total scope, but do know that, to be careful of not muddying the water on trying to make it seem like you're requesting state funding or public funding for locations that the state has not designated. You'd want to be careful on that part. You can explain how you're going to additional locations, but also make it very clear that you're doing that on your own dime. That is not something where one is able to request more funding or for funding for any locations outside of the ones that the state has designated.
Understood. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Jessica, this is Bob Ragsdale.
Sure.
A question just regarding the comment there. If a company's building out to those 1,500 locations, and a lot of these locations are at the very end of facilities that have not been expanded out, if a company is going to expend money to build facilities out to that location and they pick up additional locations along the way, can that piece of their expenditures be considered matching funds?
Let us go back and review that and we can update that in an FAQ. Generally, for the most part, for match, we are looking to see a cash match contribution, but we certainly can update that in the FAQs.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Stephen?
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing?
Good morning.
I just had a question earlier on. You did mention about a map with the eligible areas.
Yes.
When and where would that is that going to be at?
So that is on OPB's website. I will say as a caveat, I struggle with it sometimes too. But so I check OPB's website so often for the Capital Projects Fund that I've noticed my computer through caching sometimes does not show the most up-to-date version of the information on OPB's website. So if you go to OPB's website, and you click on COVID response, and then you click on American Rescue Plan Act, you'll see a link for Capital Projects Fund. And that's where the final list of eligible project areas is. That's where obviously the link for this webinar is, the notice of funding opportunity, the recording for the last workshop. That's where all of the documents are for this program, and that all has been updated. But it is also important to highlight that I often don't see all the information that I know has been uploaded. And if I go back and delete the cache on my computer, then it is showing the new information. Or sometimes I will encourage people, if you think something's supposed to be out there and you're not seeing it, check on your phone first, just to make sure if that is a caching issue, just because sometimes those documents won't appear even though they are live on the website.
Understood. I see them down there. They're on the kind of the bottom right.
Yeah, all the
corner.
documents are in the section on the bottom right. That's correct.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Anything else? Anybody else? Anything else? Otherwise, we'll give everybody back 30 minutes to hopefully work on their applications. Again, I just wanted to reiterate as well, if anybody has not done a data request to get this information for the actual address points that we are expecting to see, that is the way to obviously know the total number of address points that we expect to see in that data set. And obviously for you to create those network designs to ultimately submit your budget and your application to serve those locations. And so please go ahead, and if you have not done a data request already and you're planning to apply, please go ahead and do that, just because essentially, if you don't do a data request, you're not going to have the information that you are going to need to apply for the grant. And so at that point, we have gotten a lot of data requests, but if there's anybody on the call that has not done that, please go ahead and do that. Just email me. My contact information is right there, and we'll go ahead and get that processed as quickly as possible. But I mean, that information is how you will design your application and know the number of locations that the state is expecting to see. So that is a very important component of this. Again, with that, I'll just give everybody one more opportunity, and then otherwise we will go ahead and wrap up for this workshop. Okay, great. Well, thank you, everybody. If you have any questions, obviously my contact information is here, as is Jana's. If you have any kind of more specific broadband questions, send them my way. If you've got more kind of technical SurveyMonkey or kind of 2CFR uniform guidance questions, please send those Jana's way. Please feel free to email either one of us, though. If one of us is better to field a question, we do swap those. But please feel free to reach out if you've got any questions about the process. We obviously very much can talk about the process. We obviously at some point, can't give a ton of information about what we expect to see in certain sections of the application, but for the information we can share, we certainly want to be a good resource. If you have any issues with SurveyMonkey, please reach out. If you do encounter that there's a box that's not working correctly, we have tested everything, but it's very easy for us to go and make a change. And so if there's something that's not accommodating the data or the type of information you're trying to share in your application, let us know, and we can, it is pretty flexible on the back end for us to make changes to that. And so if there is a section that needs an upload box, or if something is capping out a character limit, we can address that. Just let us know as quickly as possible, and that's something that we can work to address. With that, thank you so much for your time. I'm very excited to now have the application open for this process, and looking forward to having the opportunity to receive the applications and to help everybody along with this process and answer any questions. So if anybody needs anything, please feel free to reach out to either Jonna or myself. And otherwise, I hope everybody has a great day and a great rest of the week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.